What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. Today, very excited to check out Lisboa from Eagle Griffin Games. This is for 1 to 4 players. Ages probably 14 plus. It'll take you about 2 hours to play. And in Lisboa, you live in the very unfortunate city of Lisboa, which has had an earthquake and fire and flooding and just lots of bad stuff happening to it. So you are going to try and fix the city, aka score wigs, which are victory points, by talking to the Pope and building stores and building public monuments and buttering up elected officials with cloth and pancakes and books and selling goods and doing all sorts of Euro-y type of things. This is an incredibly crunchy, meaty Euro. And the middle part I want to mention that I'm about to do is a little bit lengthier than I'd like to be. It's like 15 or 16 minutes of me just absolutely losing my mind telling you about all the different things that are in this game, so be forewarned about that. But let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think about it. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Lisboa. So first and foremost, we got a handy dandy rule booklet. It's 23 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and luckily it is very well done and it should have you up and running pretty smoothly. That being said, it's going to take you a while to wrap your brain around this game, but still, this rule booklet could have tanked the game, and I'm glad to say it does not. There also is a gaming rules link on the back. I personally would prefer to use the rule booklet just because of how much stuff is going on in this game. It's kind of hard to remember it without the rule booklet in front of you, but that might just be me because I have ADHD. So before we get started, I want to mention that there is a lot of stuff going on in this game. I'm going to do my best to give you a feel for how the game works, but I'm going to have to gloss over a lot of stuff to not make this middle part of the video 30 minutes. So in Lisboa, you're in the city Lisboa, which I think is in Europe or something like that, and there has been an earthquake, there's been flooding, there's been a fire. It's just been a pretty rough week for these people. And you are now in charge of rebuilding the city, building stores and building, city monuments and stuff like that, and then, moving the Pope around this little track, because I guess he hasn't got his step goal for the day or something like that. I don't know why he's moving around the track. And you're also going to be talking to these guys over here, and you're gonna trade them stuff so they could do stuff, and you're also going to be shipping, and you're also going to be gaining tons and tons of special abilities, and oh my gosh, there's so much going on in this game. But let's start from the get-go. You're going to try and earn wigs. You're going to earn wigs in a variety of different ways. I'm not even going to begin to talk about it. You're also going to be gaining a lot of special abilities in this game that will be unique to you. Cards will give you special abilities. These decree cards up here will give you special scoring bonuses at the end of the game. These tiles right here that you get from the Pope who's doing his steps are going to give you special abilities which you'll be able to use. You also can unlock special abilities by building stores. Just special abilities up the wazoo. But let's go ahead and I'll talk about the components and then we'll get into the gameplay. So component-wise, here is the board out here. We're going to go over stuff real quick at first. Over here are going to be cards that you'll be able to pick up. You got green cards, blue cards, purple cards, and then specialty cards, which will allow you to do public events. Those cards are really stinking cool. We have an influence tracker down here because you need to keep track of your influence. And this is also a way for you to potentially score a little bit of wigs, aka victory points, if you are really influential. Over here we have the green, blue, and purple dudes who you're going to bribe and trade with, so you can take their 9 actions down here. And we'll talk a little bit more about these actions later, so hang tight on that. In the middle part right here, we have the influence tracker, which is going to have coins on the right side and influence on the left side, and this will be going up and down depending on what you do, like if you buy a boat or if you produce various different stuff. Lots of stuff is going to move this track up and down. Right up here, that's the little Pope track, and the Pope's going to go around this, and when he moves, you'll be able to, for some reason, get special ability tiles. And you put these on your little player board, and those will give you special abilities that only you have, which is an aspect I really like about this game. Up top, we have decree cards, which will give you, and only you, special scoring bonuses at the end of the game. And they can be worth a lot of points, and they'll help you kind of fine-tune what you're trying to do in the game. Over here on the right side, what we're going to have is we're going to have the city. And this is the city that you are going to be rebuilding. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of cubes around this. The cubes are what's called rubble, and you're going to need rubble in order to hold more goods, in order to do a lot of different things. You definitely want to get rubble. Also, that's one of the 2 end game conditions is once someone has gotten 4 sets of rubble, which doesn't make any sense to you now. But needless to say, all those cubes out there are rubble. All these little squares here are going to be storage stores that you're going to build. And the stores that you build will give you immediate bonuses when you place them, and all the immediate bonuses you can see right there. Also on the outside, there's like public monuments, there's stuff like that you'll be able to build. Those will also give you special bonuses you'll be able to utilize right then and there. And they're going to give you 2 rubble apiece, which is going to help you potentially end the game and also hold more goods. There's shipping in this game because hooray for shipping. Every Euro game has to have shipping, right? Well, there's shipping in this game. You can buy boats, and not only you can ship off your boats, but other people can ship off your boats. So hooray for that. And if you're going to be shipping, you have to have goods, right? So there's goods right here, and your stores are going to produce goods. Remember those? The stores you're going to buy, you're going to build, and they're going to produce goods. And then when they do produce goods, the price of the goods will go down, but you'll be able to sell goods on your boat, and you'll also be able to take your goods and bribe these guys to do whatever you want because they're corrupt politicians. And oh my gosh, are you having an aneurysm yet? Yeah, there's still more to talk about. Over here we have the city plans, which you'll be able to build. There's a green architect and a blue architect. Apparently there were only 2 people in the architect school, and I guess that's the only architects in the city, but you'll need plans in order to do that. Not even going to go into that aspect. There's still a lot to talk about. And then, of course, you have a player board, because this board is not large enough to contain this game. And this is going to be your player board. And your player board is actually incredibly useful once you know what's going on. This is where you're going to store your goods. How many goods can you store? You can only store 2 of a certain type of goods until you get those sets of rubble cubes, as I mentioned. This is where you're going to store your little favor tokens. We'll talk more about favor tokens later. This is where you're going to store your green architect and blue architect plans, because I guess you stole them from them or something. Not quite sure. Over here, you're going to have these little houses, and when you put the little houses on the stores that you build, you will slowly unlock special abilities, which you will be able to utilize throughout the game, which is really kind of neat. Up here is where you're going to put your Pope special abilities for when you talk to the Pope, and down here, you're going to put your really stinking cool meeples of dudes who are going to be over there, and they're going to help you build stuff later. Also, you notice it has a weird like inlay right here and an inlay right here. That's because you're going to be able to tuck cards down here and up there, and also tuck your boat up there, and those are going to give you immediate special abilities and long-term special abilities as long as that card is in front of you. So, yeah, lots going on in this game. Also, there's a cool first player aid marker right there. So let's talk about the actions you're going to be taking in this game, because although it sounds terribly complex, I want to assure you, once you know what you're doing, there's only four things you can do on your turn, and there's only like 9 actions in the entire game for the most part. Maybe 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 actions. But there's not as nearly as complex as you might think. So first we got to take a look at our handy-dandy player aid card. Oh my god, it's actually just another rule booklet. Yes, this is your handy-dandy player aid card. Everyone is going to get one of these, and I will say, this is absolutely spectacular, and when you're first learning the game, this will help you so much. It goes through all the different actions that you'll be able to take. It goes through every single special tile that's out there, because I talked about how all these special tiles are going to give you special abilities that only you will have, and all those cards up there, those decree cards, are going to give you special scoring things that only you will have. This will talk about all of that, which is fantastic. So huge thumbs up on this as well. It is very useful. And on the back, it just tells you the options that you'll have on your turn. So let's go over the different options that you'll have on your turn. The first one is you can place a card into your portfolio, and then you can sell goods or trade with nobles. So let's do that piece by piece. So I talked about that little inlay on your board right here and right here. That is what's called your portfolio. How this works is you will tuck a card into there and you will gain that. So if I tuck this card right down here, as you can see there's an arrow right there, I boom, plop it right there, and that immediately earns me 1 cloth, and it'll earn me potentially victory points a little bit later. And we'll talk more influence a little bit later, but we'll talk more about that if we get to that point, which we probably won't because there's so much going on. So we just tuck a card in and we get the immediate bonus there. Also, some of these are going to have persistent bonuses that you'll be able to utilize. For instance, this one makes all the red rubble that you have to pay for a little bit cheaper, because when you build buildings, you're going to have to pay for the rubble on the street for some reason. I'm sure thematically it works, but I'm too stupid for that sort of thing. So then, after you've tucked one of those things in your portfolio, you're going to be able to sell goods or trade with nobles, because we talked about how some people will have boats, and the boats will progressively get bigger. So you could sell your goods. How much money you get is based on this little track down here, and also some of the boats will give you special bonuses for selling stuff, which is really cool as well. The other option you can do is you can trade with the nobles. So each one of the nobles has one thing they specifically like. So the pink guy likes cloth, the blue guy likes the brown, the books, And then the green guy over here likes the blue thing right there. But they also all like gold because they're greedy old rich politicians. And what that means is you just say, all right, I really want to take, this action right here. So boom, I would plop it right there. And then you get to take that action. So that would be you trading with the nobles. You essentially traded your cloth for an action. You scratch my back, so on and so forth. The last thing you do after each and every action, so I'm only going to mention it once, is you take a new card because you're always going to spend a card on your turn. So we tuck one card into portfolio. Now we go over here and we either get a green card, a blue card, a red card, or a special card with stuff on it, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And that will trigger the half point of the game whenever 3 of these decks run out, or whenever someone gets enough rubble to trigger the second part of the game, which is when you were going to start using these new, more powerful cards, the purple and the brown cards, and also more powerful boats, which we'll be able to ship more from. But we're not even going to go into that because there's so much to go into. So the next action you could do is you can play a noble card to the royal court. That means you're going to take one of these cards that has a picture of their face on it, and you're going to put it up here in the royal court. So let's just walk you through that. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do, boom, that action right there. I'm going to talk to the blue guy. What that means is the first thing I have to do is I have to spend influence equal to how much is on the track. So we would just move down our little influence track right there, boom. And then we get to take 2 actions from the blue guy. So you have to take this big action right here, but you also get to take one of these actions for free as well. So I could either produce goods in my stores, which I don't have any stores right now, or I could buy a boat or upgrade a boat. So I might just do that. And you would just buy a boat and you would have to pay to get the boat out there, and you pay boats with goods. And the more expensive the boat is, obviously the more goods you have to pay. So that's how you're going to do that. That one allows you to use that guy and 2 of his abilities, and you have to use that big ability, the big abilities. So, the other interesting aspect of this particular action is it allows other people to follow you and take one of those actions of the blue guy as long as they have one of these blue tokens. So how this works is if somebody has this blue token on their player board, they'd be like, aha, I'm going to do this too as well, and they would get to take one of these actions as well. So that is the second action you can do, and then of course you draw another card. The third thing you can do is you can sponsor an event, which is where these cards come into play. How this works is you're going to play a card up here like so, boom, and you're going to pay the treasury value, which is over here. And that's just you paying coins. And then you are hosting a special event, and this particular special event is going to give you 2 gold, so you would just take 2 of the gold tokens over there, and good for you. That's your turn. Very self-explanatory turn, and then you take a new card. The last action you can do, and you'll never, ever, ever going to do it because it's the worst action in the history of all actions in any game ever, is you can just discard a card and get a gold, but gold isn't really worth much at all in this game, so it's obviously a terrible, terrible action, and if you ever get to that point, you're probably going to lose the game. So those are the 4 main actions that you will be able to do on your turn, which is actually pretty self-explanatory. But let's talk about these 9 actions down here, and then we'll get you to my thoughts about the game because, yeah, there's a lot to go on in this game. So let's go from left to right. We'll talk about the different actions. This one's going to allow you to recruit up to 2 officials, which just means you're going to put 2 officials out here. You need to have officials out here because they will allow you to city plan and build those structures a little bit later. Another thing that I'm not going to go terribly too much into. Next thing is you can get a plan, and these are going to be the plans over here. You will have them put on your board on the green face and the blue face, and that's another way to score points at the end of the game by completing various different city plans. The next action is where I talked about you can build a ship or upgrade a ship. This one is going to allow you to produce goods on your stores, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Those are your stores over here. This one over here is going to allow you to move the cardinal. So you're going to be moving this guy around the track and gaining those special abilities. Also, when you get to 2 of these different points, different things will happen. Like this will raise, and then if you get all the way to here, you will score victory points based on how much is up top up here. So yeah, interesting there. Next, you can get a royal favor, which is this one right here, which is going to allow you to take one of these royal favors, which will help you a little bit later follow an action of someone else. But let's talk about the meat of this game, which are going to be these 3 big actions right here. So the first one is to build a store, and the stores are going to be these things right here. This is another way for you to score victory points at the end of the game, and also you will score points during the game for doing this. Now, building a store is going to be a pretty pricey endeavor because you have to pay for all the rubble that is next to you over here and over here. White rubble is going to cost you $3, red rubble is going to cost you $2, and blue rubble is going to cost you $1. But once you do this, you're immediately going to gain the special ability listed there, and then you also can gain more victory points based on whether or not there are other of these buildings, the public structures, that are adjacent to you, either up or to the side. It's kind of difficult to explain without, physically having a picture of it, but needless to say, if the colors match up. So if there was a brown building right here, I would gain victory points, and down here is how many victory points you would gain for doing that. So that can be a very lucrative way to earn points. The next action over here is that you can build a public structure, which is going to have to... So if I wanted to build this public structure, I would have to have a blue guy's plan, and I would have to turn in 2 dudes from over here. That's where those dudes come into play. And by doing that, I would have to put it wherever I wanted to put it, and then I would get the special ability on there, and I also would get to keep the rubble. One thing I forgot to mention that I actually screwed up a little bit earlier is the influence. I said you had to pay for the cost of influence over here for one of the actions. I know that was so long ago, you probably already forgot about it, but that actually pertains to how many meeples are in here of your opponents, because there is a whole other strategy there, which I have not even begun to dip my head into. By having a lot of people here, it makes it more difficult for other people to take actions in those spots. The last action you can do is that you can take decrees, which are these up here, and these are going to score you victory points based on certain conditions at the end of the game. So maybe you have more stores in row C or more stores in row B, or maybe you have one of each color store, or various different things like that, but that's going to score you victory points at the end of the game. The game will finally end when either 3 of those stacks of cards run out once we get to the fancy purple and brown cards, or when we get to 4, when someone gets to 4 of their sets of the rubble cubes, at which point you will finish the round. Whoever has the most victory points will be the winner of the game. You'll score victory points in a variety of different ways. I think there's like 6 or 7 different things you go into for scoring victory points, but that, in an oh my gosh, absolutely insane nutshell, is how you're going to play Lisboa. Alrighty then, Lisboa from Eagle Griffin Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. 1 to 4 players, restricted player count. Also, 2 to 3 hour playtime. That is a little bit more lengthy than a lot of people are going to want, and it's probably going to be closer to about 3.5 hours, especially when you're first learning the game and if you're playing with more players. Another comment of this game is it's really difficult to wrap your brain around when you first start, at least for me personally. Now, this is a your mileage may vary kind of thing, but I've played tons of games. I've played Vinhos and the Gallerist from this exact same creator, Vital, and I didn't have nearly as much trouble as I did wrapping my brain around this game, just because there's so much to take into consideration. There's so many different ways for you to score points and so many things that you need to keep track of, whether or not it's influence or having your council members over here or moving little pope track around or getting boats or shipping or building stores in specific locations. This is just a mashup of so many different things that I think it's going to be overwhelming for a lot of people. Well, at its core, it's very simple. You have 1 of 4 choices that you can do on your turn. One of those choices is completely bogus. So you realistically have 1 of 3 choices you can take in your turn. And there's only really 9 actions you can take in the whole game. But man, those 9 actions, there's just like actions upon actions inside of actions. And it's just a lot to take in, which will be daunting and just overwhelming for a lot of people. I mean, the fact that this massive board, which is humongous, is not enough and you need your own individual player board should tell you a lot about this game and whether or not it's going to be for you. Any other cons that I have with the game? Obviously the setup's going to be a little bit lengthier, and but that's kind of to be expected with a game like this. Trying to think, no, not really that I can think of on the console. I liked it best at 4 players. I will say I've only played this solo, 2 players, and 4 players. So I've not got the opportunity to play it 3 players. Moving on to the pros, Lisboa is fantastic. I mean, it is. It's absolutely fantastic. Is it going to be a game for everybody? No. Heck no. This is not going to be a game for a lot of people. But if you're the kind of person who's like, man, that game looks really cool, I think this will be for you. So what do I like about the game? First and foremost, I love games that give me my own special abilities, and this one does that in spades. You go and talk to the Pope, you're going to get special abilities. You go get decrees, you're going to go get special endgame scoring things. You're building stores, and you're going to take your houses off. You can gain your own special abilities, and some of them are better than others, and you have to kind of work your way up to getting those, so you need to build more stores, and I like that. I can have my own custom boat. I can have the best boat around, and I can just be shipping crazy amounts of goods and getting crazy amount of cash. There's tons of different strategies in this game and ways to win the game, and some of them I haven't even found yet. Like, after 3 games of this, I still feel like I am only, surface deep for how complex and meaty this game is, which I like, which me personally, I really do enjoy, but that's not going to be for everybody. Another pro that I have in this game is that I do like the theme. I joked about it a little bit in the middle part, if you actually sat through that crazy jumbled mess. But I do think it's a cool theme, and the fact that it actually happened is even more neat. And all the mechanisms, despite the fact there are mechanisms upon mechanisms, and there's actions upon actions, and there's sub-actions, and you can follow my action if you play this cube, and I got this extra rubble, so I can do a decree thing. There's so much going on in this game, but it all comes together and works very, very well, which I love. I love the fact that every single moving part and moving gear in this game works together pretty well. Nothing feels like it was tacked on, which is fantastic. Now, it does feel like it's bursting at the seams somewhat, but I really do like that aspect. Now, I want to mention the solo version of the game, because a lot of people are curious about the solo version of the game. I had fun with it. I really did enjoy it, and I think I would play it again, absolutely. And it's also a great way to learn the game as well, and to learn some of the strategies of the game. You play against a dummy player. The dummy player's pretty good. So I did like the solo version of the game. I liked it better with players, but that's a general rule of thumb for me. But it was a rock-solid solo game if you're looking at this as a solo game. Component-wise, components are fantastic. I like the artwork. Everything looks good and clean. The graphic design, once you know what's going on, is very well done. And there's graphic design all around the board. There's little helpful things all around the board. And on your player mat, the player mat looks really stinking cool. This is a godsend. This, I honestly would probably rate this 8.1 out of 10. I think it's a great game, but it's definitely not going to be for everybody. But this probably raises it a half point. Being able to have this in front of you is absolutely fantastic, and I wish more heavier games did this. Vast does the same thing, where everybody just gets their own personal little rule sheet, and you can kind of learn the game yourself and learn little nuances of the game as you're playing and as other people take turns. So this is very, very helpful. The rule booklet's outstanding. Top-notch components. Like, it feels like a premium game, and if you're looking for that, this will definitely scratch that itch. Another thing I really liked about this game was the fact that the turns aren't terribly long. On your turn, as I mentioned, you have one of 3 things that you can do. Now, the one of 3 things that you can do can turn into actions upon actions upon actions, but still, it's at its simplest form, it's not that complex, and the turns don't take too terribly long. I also like how there's just tons of different ways to score points. If you want to go to the Cardinal and get those special abilities, you can do that. But then later on in the game, you'll be able to turn those special abilities into victory points. So you can use the special abilities progressively through the game, but then towards the end of the game, you can start selling those off to get yourself those valuable wigs. I love the fact that there's the decree cards. And if you go for a heavy decree card strategy, then you're going to be trying to play the game a very specific way based on which decree cards you picked up. But that also is going to cause other people, once they start understanding the game, and that's a huge caveat, to be like, oh man, if he is able to, have the most in this row, he's going to gain 5 victory points at the same time. So even though I don't really want to put something in that row, I might put something in that row just so I can kind of nag that 5 points away from him. I also really like how the card system works. I like dual use cards, and these cards are really great. I like how you can tuck them on the top or on the bottom, and they'll give you various different things. I like how there's short-term rewards versus long-term rewards, and you can kind of plan which one you want to go for accordingly. I like how the plan system works, where if you get those plans, you can start building those structures, and those structures are really great because they're going to give you rubble, they're going to give you special abilities, and they're going to allow you to put those plans face down, which will be one of the scoring things at the end of the game. I also like the fact that you can score points for building the most stores of various different colors. I like the fact that the game does not try and tell you how to play. Now, that being said, there are also some awesome things in here in the, the Kickstarter exclusive stuff, which I think they're only going to do 1 print run or 2 print runs, so I think it'll probably be in everything. But they really help out. There are various different things, starting decree variants, which will allow you to kind of help people who are first learning the game. Because this is definitely the kind of game, and I noticed this especially when I played at 4 players, where I absolutely crushed everybody when I knew what I was doing and they did not. You want to have people on equal skill levels for this game, but luckily they have these starting things that you can add in there that will kind of give them, a handicap, so to speak, that they will have a little bit higher probability of winning the game than you, but because you are on a higher skill level than them, it balances itself out, which I really, really do like. So overall, Lisboa is a fantastic game. I really enjoy the game. I think it's a great game. If I was not a game reviewer, this would be the kind of game that I would absolutely love to play on a regular basis and just say, hey, you guys want to play Lisboa? And once you know what you're doing, I think you really could knock it out in an hour and 40 minutes, 2 hours. But this is the kind of game that you're going to need to make sure that you have the right game group for, first and foremost, and that you're going to need to get played, 3, 4, 5 times before you really get the most out of this game, just because of how much is going on in this game. So in the end, Lisboa, it's a fantastic game by Vital Lacerda, and he's a great designer, but man, it's not going to be for everybody. But for me personally, I do enjoy it, and I would absolutely love to play it again with people who are on an even playing field. Like, I'm excited for the first time I get to play a 4-player game of this where everybody knows what they're doing. I think that would be a lot of fun. But that is Lisboa from Eagle Griffin Games, one that I definitely can recommend if you like heavy, meaty Euros, and if you are going to be able to get this to the table on a pretty routine basis. If you enjoyed this review, please try to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. Premium games. What are your thoughts on premium games? This is a $120 game, which to me personally just sounds insane. No matter that I think this is a fantastic game, I think it's a great game, I'm just not going to pay $120 for a game because I see the fact that I could buy 3 $40 games brand new on Amazon. Or if I go used, or if I go like cheaper than that, I could get like 5 or 6 games for that same price. So me personally, in my current financial status, just premium games are not an option for me. But for you personally, premium games, do you think this is something that you'd be interested in? Because I know Eagle Griffin has kind of gone that way to just the premium games for the most part. They do other stuff as well, but like Vinhos and the Daedalus the Daedalus Project, and the that Galaxy one, which I didn't really like. But what do you think about premium games? Let me know about it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.